Liz,
Well, I'm
on an
afraid
equally rather lachrymose
I haven't
topic.
chosen anything sweet. I'm afraid. When the word connect was put around, I quite struggled really, and chatting over with a friend of mine who said, "Well, what about that John Wyndham story? You know the one." And I did know the one. It was a favourite when I was a teenager, and it's all about telepathy.
Right.
So the connection of minds, and it's a cracking adventure story. It's quite. It's set in a dystopian future, so like 1984 and Brave New World.
Yes. Yeah.
But a lot more.
Or indeed Day of the Triffids, I guess. Another John Wyndham's
well, yeah,
works.
possibly not as well known as Day of the Triffids or The Midwich Cuckoos, which have both been made into films and TV plays. But this is his book called The Chrysalids. It's set in the thousands of years in the future, after what we as a modern reader would recognise as a nuclear holocaust has destroyed the world and caused a lot of genetic mutations amongst people, animals, crops. And the hero, when we first meet him, is a 10-year-old boy called David, who's living in a very rural community, which is terrified of abnormalities. My meeting with Sophie was, I suppose, the first incident. The next was that Uncle Axel found out about me and my half-cousin, Rosalind Morton. He, and it was lucky it was he and no one else, happened to come upon me when I was talking to her. It must have been a self-preserving instinct which had made us keep the thing to ourselves, for we'd no active feeling of danger. I had so little, in fact, that when Uncle Axel found me sitting behind a rick, chatting, apparently to myself, I made very little effort to dissemble. He may have been there a minute or more before I became aware of someone just round the corner of my eye, and turned to see who it was. My Uncle Axel was a tall man, neither thin nor fat, but sturdy and with a seasoned look to him. I used to think, when I watched him at work, that his weathered hands and forearms had some sort of kinship with the polished wood of the helves they used. He was standing in his customary way, with much of his weight upon the thick stick he used, because his leg had been wrongly set when it was broken at sea. His bushy eyebrows, a little touched with grey, were drawn closer by a half-frown, but the lines on his tanned face were half amused as he regarded me. "Oh, Davy boy, and who would you be chatting away so hard to? Is it fairies or gnomes or only the rabbits?" he asked. I just shook my head. He limped closer and sat down beside me, chewing on a stalk of grass from the rick. "Feeling lonely?" he inquired. "No," I told him. He frowned a bit again. "Wouldn't it be more fun to do your chatting with some of the other kids?" he suggested. "More interesting than just sitting and talking to yourself?" I hesitated, and then, because he was Uncle Axel and my best friend among the grown-ups, I said, "But I was." "Was what?" he asked, puzzled. "Talking to one of them," I told him. He frowned and went on looking puzzled. "Who?" "Rosalind," I told him. He paused a bit, looking at me harder. "I don't see her around," he remarked. "Oh, she isn't here. She's at home. At least she's near home, in the little secret tree house her brother's built in the spinney," I explained. "It's a favourite place of hers." He was not able to understand what I meant at first. He kept on talking as though it were a make-believe game. But after I tried for some time to explain, he sat quiet, watching my face as I talked, and presently his expression became very serious. After I'd stopped, he said nothing for a minute or two. Then he asked, "This isn't play stuff. It's the real truth you're telling me, Davy boy?" And he looked at me hard and steadily as he spoke. "Yes, Uncle Axel, of course," I assured him. And you've never told anybody else? Nobody at all? No, it's a secret, I told him. He looked relieved. He threw away the remains of his grass stalk and pulled another out of the rick. After he had thoughtfully bitten a few pieces off that and spat them out, he looked directly at me again. Davy, he said, I want you to make me a promise. Yes, Uncle Axel. It's this, he said, speaking very seriously. I want you to keep it secret. I want you to promise that you will never, never tell anybody else what you've told me. Never. It's very important. Later on you'll understand better how important it is. You mustn't do anything that would even let anyone guess about it. Would you promise me that? His gravity impressed me greatly. I had never known him to speak with so much intensity. It made me aware, when I gave my promise, that I was vowing something more important than I could understand. He kept his eyes on mine as I spoke, and then nodded, satisfied that I meant it. We shook hands on the agreement. And he said, It would be best if you could forget it altogether. I thought that over, and then I shook my head. I don't think I could, Uncle Axel. Not really. I mean, it just is. It'd be like trying to forget. I broke off, unable to express what I wanted to. Like trying to forget how to talk or how to hear, perhaps, he suggested. Rather like that, only different, I admitted. You hear the words inside your head? He asked. Well, not exactly hear, and not exactly see, I told him. There are, well, sort of shapes, and if you use words, you make them clearer so that they're easier to understand. But you don't have to use words. Not say them out loud as you were doing just now. Oh no, it just helps to make it clearer sometimes. It also helps to make things a lot more dangerous for both of you. I want you to make me another promise that you will never do it out loud anymore. Right, Uncle Axel, I agreed again. You'll understand when you're older how important it is, he told me, and then he went on to insist that I should get Rosalind to make the same promises. I didn't tell him anything about the others, because he seemed so worried already. But I decided I'd get them to promise too. At the end, he put out his hand again, and once more we swore secretly, very solemnly. And later on I have another extract from the story a lot further on, when we find out what this talent, this mutation and this power has done to people in the story.
Brilliant. All right, Liz, thank you very much.